I asked the Zen master, what is dancing? Dancing. Dancing. Dancing.
Danser, c'est faire l'amour. La danse, c'est l'art. Danser, c'est faire l'amour. Rhythmus. La danse, c'est l'art. Freiheit. Danser, c'est faire l'amour. 踊りは伝統である。La danse, c'est l'art. 踊りは空虚だ。Tanzen ist Rhythmus. C'est faire l'amour. Tanzen ist Freiheit. C'est l'art. 踊りは伝統である。Rhythmus. 踊りは空虚だ。
It is the movement of life. It is the movement of life. What is dancing?
Rhythmus. Freiheit. C'est faire l'amour. C'est l'art. 伝統である。空虚だ。
What is dancing?
Rhythmus. Freiheit. C'est faire l'amour. C'est l'art. 伝統である。空虚だ。Tanzen ist Freiheit.
Well, John has arrived, everyone, and we will explain that song on another episode, but we're going to do a show on that weird song
Yeah.
because it really was written by a cult leader.
Yes,
Is
it
that
was.
one of Manson's songs?
No.
No. Okay. Hi, Kat. Hi, Ishi.
Hey.
What's up, man?
I already apologized to Ishi, but I'm just apologizing to Kat. She knows why. I'm sorry.
Oh, dude, don't worry about it. No, really, seriously,
Kids,
don't worry about it.
Kids, beware of drugs. That's all I can say, including prescription ones, especially prescription ones.
Hey, I was on prescription drugs last night. Don't worry about it.
Oh, great. It all worked. It all fits. Everybody's on something, so we're all
So-
okay. Can you hold on 1 second?
Oh, I guess.
1 second. Okay, maybe 5 seconds.
Does anyone know what dancing is?
You're supposed to meditate to that song.
I really don't see how.
Yeah,
It's meditating to CNC Music Factory, apparently.
it's supposed to help you focus.
Every time I talk to you guys, I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my office is a mess," and it gets messier and messier every time.
Well, it's okay. We can't see it.
Hi.
Oh, camera. Hey.
Did you want this on or off?
Oh, don't worry
Up
about
to
it.
you.
All right.
Totally up to you.
What the hell? I have to get used to it, I suppose, right? All right.
There we go. Hey, good seeing you.
Good seeing you guys. So what's happening?
Well, I thought I'd bring one thing up before we start the show. I decided to ask an artificial intelligence to draw me a picture of Ayn Rand, and it gave me this.
Remember I told you I had pictures picked out to show instead of the green screen before I understood it was my camera? Remember I told you that last week? Half of them are of Ayn Rand.
Shit.
Really?
Yeah, that was going to be my picture. It's like, oh, let's see John's picture. Okay, here it is. Now I have to figure out how to do that because she's more interesting to look at than me. But I found a lot of stuff. But anyway, so geez, Ayn Rand was quite the hottie according to AI.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
I think maybe she'd be a little more popular if she looked like that with the youngins.
Have you seen the interview with her with Phil Donahue
Oh,
back
it's
in the
great.
70s? And she just looks like she's just like a knife through butter with him. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
always thought he was just so like, oh, I can argue with anyone and I can talk with anyone. And it's like it was like candlepin bowling. It was pretty
Yeah.
damn beautiful.
It was kind of like her just repeatedly kicking him in the nuts verbally.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, the funny thing too is someday if you do an Ayn Rand show, maybe I'll be on and I'll comment that she wrote the worst book I've ever read. The single worst book. You know how people
We'll
say,
get
well,
into that later because we
Yes,
should
that's
really
why I said-
dive into tonight's topic, which is
Yes.
first Leigh Brackett, who was she, and was her and her husband the true genius behind Star Wars?
The answer is no. Next question. No.
Did you watch that documentary?
I watched the documentary. I thought it was very I really thought it was a case of we can connect all these little things where and say that she did it, where I think what it actually does, it simply buffets the idea that Lucas just stole from everybody. And one of the things behind Star Wars that made it so popular was he took good stuff from all kinds of places. He took good stuff from Westerns, from samurai movies, from science fiction. That's one of the things that people don't seem to understand about the original Star Wars. It's very postmodern. It's like probably the most popular postmodern anything that was made in that era, especially.
Why would it be postmodern?
Because it took elements. If you look back on the history of science fiction, they take usually books. You see that they did a lot of things. What do they call them? They did a lot of Westerns that were done as science fiction. A laser gun instead of a six-shooter, that kind of thing. I can't think of an earlier version of any science fiction movie or book that took from so many places that Lucas took from and merged them into that in a way that, for example, Thomas Pynchon in Gravity's Rainbow is known for, like, pulling all these characters. I'm not trying to say Gravity's Rainbow is anything like Star Wars. It's not. I'm just saying that it's championed as being postmodern because, and also Ragtime which was a huge book. And the thing that Ragtime was famous for is it took real people and had them interact with fictional characters.
So what you're saying is that he stole from the best and didn't give credit.
This is the long and the short of it is this. You can see everything that documentary says. You can, I think it was in the extras for The Phantom Menace, where George Lucas shows where he writes. And he's very proudly points to this bookshelf literally at his left side. It's all paperbacks of, like, Leigh Brackett, Edmund Hamilton. It's right there. So I look at these things that are in there and I'm like, well, you know what? Leigh Brackett never wrote pastiche. She never, like, took bits of her previous works and laid them down like that. I think George Lucas did that.
So you don't think he hired her to, ghostwrite the at least a first draft of the first movie?
Because I got to admit, I do have to say, we know how Lucas writes because we saw one film, and one film alone that apparently was written by him, Phantom Menace, and it was incomprehensible and terrible.
It also is a result of the thing that he considers one of the best things to happen to him creatively, and I consider the worst thing that happened to him creatively, which was he was taken under the wing of Joseph Campbell, who told him, hey, you're not just making a fun movie for people, which is exactly the mindset Lucas had when he made Star Wars. I'm one of those people who calls the original Star Wars. Okay, I don't know what this New Hope shit is. And he started believing his own shit. He started thinking, hey, I know that I've said that I made this for, because kids don't have anything fun to watch. But this is really meaningful shit, And it's like, and it goes back to, remember I mentioned what John Milius said when they asked him about Phantom Menace. He said, all the subtext is up on the top, and that's not the way you do it. It's like, if you want all that stuff under there, it's like supporting material, but you need an interesting story to tell. And as John Milius said, it's a series of meetings, because that's all George does anymore. He has meetings. And I thought that was just the greatest connection. The other thing too is the video you're talking about, which I think, people should watch, because, it's always good to think about these things. It shows you all the bits and pieces that were taken from Leigh Brackett's work. It also doesn't tell you a lot of things other than that, I mean, Doc Smith, for example, is,
Oh, the Lensman.
Lensman, right, and Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think Lucas just went in there a whole and just pulled things left and right. And frankly, one of the people who was first on that was Harlan Ellison, and he was mad about it. He said, "All you people, meaning the established science fiction writers at the time, this was in '77." He said, "All you people are like feeling, oh, we're accepted now. Meanwhile, George Lucas gets fat on your old books," and he was right. And I think, let's say that I'm familiar with Leigh Brackett's screenwriting career, and all I can say is I can't see another example. And she wrote she wrote some great movies. She also wrote something like, hold on a second, I have a entry here.
Big Sleep, El Dorado, To Have and Have Not.
No, it was like The Vampire's Asshole or something. Some 1940s. Damn it! It's gonna. Oh, The Vampire's Ghost, 1945, which was like the stupid.
Oh, she wrote that.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, it's funny when somebody suggested
it was really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
According to that fantastic book, which is called The Secret History of Star Wars, one of the people who knew Lucas at the time said, George, since you're doing The Empire Strikes Back, you should, why don't you try to get somebody who knows this stuff? For example, and he said, well, like who? He says, Leigh Brackett. So George Lucas called Leigh Brackett and says, well, I'm George Lucas, blah, 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 blah. And then he said to her, so have you ever written any movies?
Oh, God.
And she was like, well, I wrote The Big Sleep and Rio Bravo. And he went, oh, you're that Leigh Brackett. and that doesn't prove anything here or there. I mean, maybe he said that in 1973, but still, I just think it's interesting that, again, going back to that behind the scenes thing, you see all the books he stole from literally in hand's reach of his desk.
It's kind of amazing then that literally there are passages where he just lifted them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. The movie does a good job of that, but the movie could also do that. You could do that to a lot of things like Star Trek, all this stuff. And again, I think all those, that's why I liked that video, because it did that. It shows you. And this is why today, when people say it, I just really cringe. You're like, well, nothing's original. Everybody steals from everybody. It's like, well, not really. I mean, they take it. That's artistic communication. Is like, well, you did this with this material. Now I'm going to inject my thing in this material, and I might take a little of this and a little of that. That's fine. Everybody likes that because it's like, oh, it shows that my book has been influential. But when you really look at it, Star Wars is just a compendium of other people's ideas. I mean, Frank Herbert at the time, someone put out 16 points of commonality between Dune and Star Wars.
Well, it takes place technically on a planet that might as well be Dune.
Right.
There's
even a worm.
Spice.
Yeah, there's spice mines.
By the way, one of the few books that has anything in it about Leigh Brackett is, and I'm talking in terms of nonfiction, is a book that is about 3 science fiction writers. It's Leigh Brackett, Anne McCaffrey, who did all the Dragon books.
Yeah.
And the Molester.
So you're familiar with the book?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's like I looked at it and I went, ew.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it was
Marion Zimmer Bradley.
Yeah.
Child rapist.
Yeah.
So
that's a story that the more I look into it, the worse it gets. So I stopped looking into it.
Just real quick, did you read her daughter?
Her daughters? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't finish it.
You read that and you really begin to hate people like Asimov and was it Wolstein and
yeah.
You mean Wollheim? Donald
Wollheim. Suddenly they all start coming off as real pieces of shit.
Yeah. And as that video that I sent you about, it was called like The Crimes of Science Fiction. Yeah. The thing that they really put, I think, a capper on is how the science fiction writers of America, they know how pervy so many of their members are, they don't care. They just don't care. That's the beginning and the end of it. They don't care. They accept everybody. It's like,
No, they
okay.
don't.
No, they
No,
don't.
no, no.
They'll accept child molesters, but if they found out you voted for Trump, they'd kick you out.
Well, that or if you like grown female women
Yeah.
in a heterosexual manner, they tend not to like you anymore.
Mhm.
I can't believe how fat my head is. Oh my God.
So
Sorry.
so anyway,
Fine.
before just to help the audience, who is Leigh Brackett? Because I think that's something a lot of people may not really. She's not as well known as she should be.
Absolutely. She was born in 1915, and she got into first writing for the pulps. And it has been pointed out that the way her name is written, Leigh, nobody could tell looking at her submissions that it was a man or a woman. And there were women who published in the pulps, and there were women who did the covers for the pulps. There were women who edited the pulps, but at the time, it was what it was. So she wrote space adventures, and unlike George, well, that's not true. Like George Lucas, she openly said that, she loved Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think she's a better writer than Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think Edgar Rice Burroughs is a fantastic writer, and he does some things that few writers can really achieve, which is he can grab you like no one else, and you're like halfway through the book, and you just and you didn't even realize it. And I have no apologies about him. I still think he's great. I still think he's a fantastic writer. But her stuff was better written. Her stuff just was more colorful. It was more interesting. The characters are much more real. You could transplant her characters into a Star Wars movie, whereas a lot of, for example, the John Carter stuff, a lot of those characters are very stiff reading today. The book that she was first really known for is called The Sword of Rhiannon, and it basically jumps off from the same place that A Princess of Mars jumps off, which is a man goes into the distant Martian past. That's pretty much where the common material with Burroughs ends, and it's just a fantastic. It's just a great read. It's just a terrific read, and so as time went on, she got into writing for the movies, and with the aforementioned the Vampire's Ghost in 1945. But early on, Howard Hawks heard, oh, she's a good writer, and he had William Faulkner working on the big. No, wait a minute, is that right? No, yes. Oh shit, who was it? She co-wrote The Big Sleep with? I want to say it was William Faulkner, but anyway, I think it was, and I think they wrote separately. Anyway, she showed up at his office, and he looked at her and says, "You're a woman?" And she said, "Yeah." And he went, "Okay." And they ended up making like half a dozen movies together over the years, right up till the late 60s, early 70s. She married the science fiction writer Edmund Hamilton. There's tons of Edmund Hamilton stuff in Star Wars as well, including he did Captain Future, which was basically this dude and his robot sidekick and a brain in an aquarium type thing. He was one of the characters, a brain, and I think there was an alien in there too. And they do zippy adventures around the universe, and so this goes on for quite a while. She writes The Big Sleep. She ended up writing Rio Bravo, and then she wrote El Dorado for him later on, and then she wrote Rio Lobo, and she said the word she said to him was, "Oh God, Howard, are we doing Rio Bravo again?" And he said, "It worked twice before. It's gonna work again." And it ended up being his last film. It's okay. I kind of like it. It's if you look at it the right way, Rio Lobo is actually one of the most depressing westerns you could ever see. And one of the people who caught that, I think, was a composer, Jerry Goldsmith, who wrote a very low key score. It has like very little, Magnificent Seven type rah rah music. It's very low key. And it includes the title scene, which you see the guitarist playing the theme, and the titles roll over. You just see the guitar and his hands, and the titles roll over that, playing this very melancholy theme. So if you were going in expecting a Magnificent Seven Part 9, it's like, oh, okay, this movie isn't like that. And anyway, so that's my rough pre-Star Wars Leigh Brackett stuff.
And for those who might as well know, if you buy Boobs of Steel, link in the description, you'll get a fairly decent history of the woman, how she influenced science fiction, and how important her contribution was with the Black Amazon of Mars, which was far more important than people realize.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, with that said, so just to circle things back around just a little bit, and I'm asking questions that have obvious answers simply to get you to rant.
Who's that aimed at? Your husband or me?
I don't know.
Who's that aimed at?
No. So we've established that you do not believe that she was involved in writing the first one. So
right.
What are your thoughts on Empire then? Because she did get a screen credit.
Right. And Lucas has been just so nice to himself by saying he ditched her screenplay, but he liked her so much that he gave her screen credit, which I've heard bullshit in my time. That's like the Mount Everest of bullshit, because in the first place, the Writers Guild doesn't let you do that. It doesn't let you put your friends in as a writing credit. The way the Writers Guild arbitrates things, you submit everything written about the movie with the names removed. They get a code. Okay. So people who didn't know whose name was on these read all the scripts and said the first person who gets the first credit is Leigh Brackett. So that she if you look, as I said, that book, The Secret History of Star Wars, the guy breaks down all the drafts. What basically happened was he and Leigh Brackett met in the fall and winter of 77. They had 10 days of discussions, and two of the big things that she really pushed was we have to beef up the role of the Emperor. We have to make him someone who's coming forward, because you don't even see him in the first Star Wars. Now,
but there's an Empire. But
yes, and the other thing was the Force. She wanted to punch up the Force, and she also contributed a great deal to the Yoda scenes. And people point to, well, she didn't, in that draft, Darth Vader wasn't revealed as Luke's father, and the draft that was based on what Lucas told her to do is just another. I don't think it's even Cloud City. I think it's a gun platform. In other words, it's another Death Star. It's like George Lucas has one story to tell. He's like Gene Roddenberry. They both have one story to tell. Gene Roddenberry says we go out into space, we find God, and God is insane. Is an insane alien.
No, I'm going to argue with you there. I'm going to defend Roddenberry. He has another story, and that is we go out into space and meet babes.
Yeah.
I would say that is a theme rather than a story. And did you ever see Pretty Little Maids All in a Row, the one movie that Roddenberry produced?
No.
It's Quentin Tarantino's favorite movie, so he says. But basically, it's Rock Hudson is basically playing Gene Roddenberry as a college professor who nails all his good-looking students, and and then they conveniently get killed. So, he doesn't have to explain to the wife. It's a movie. That's what that is. That Pretty Little Maids All in a Row is a movie. That's my full review of it. But Lucas only has one story to tell, which is, this rebel thing, and then a giant space gun is out in space. I mean, one of the most creatively bankrupt things in all of movie history has to be Return of the Jedi. Another Death Star?
Yeah, that was a real letdown.
Yeah.
You couldn't think of any other. That's it, and it was just a rerun. But anyway, I lost my train of thought as usual. But yeah. She absolutely had tons to do with Empire. That was what I was going to say. And so at the end of the story that he gave her, they just have a fight on this gun platform, and then they escape, and that's the end. Han Solo escapes, Leia escapes, Luke escapes. It's a rerun basically of the first movie, completely, with just added stuff with Yoda. There's more of that. There's more of the training stuff as opposed to in the first one when they just had kind of a little bit of training on the Millennium Falcon, and that was all Luke's Force training. And so she added a lot of meat to that story. And it makes you cringe when Lucas acts like, oh yeah, I just gave that to her. It's like, F you did not. Yeah, I mean, his two of his best friends in movies are Willard Hayek and Gloria Katz, the husband and wife who wrote THX 1138. They did a pass on the Star Wars script and added most of the humor. And the humor is what engaged people. They didn't get a screen credit. But he liked Leigh Brackett as opposed to these two friends of his. Okay, George. Whatever.
So not so good at giving credit, huh? Good at stealing, but not good at giving credit.
Yeah, he thinks that the fact that he talks about these things, like, oh, I wanted to do Flash Gordon, all this stuff, away from the movie, that somehow makes up for it. It's like, well, it doesn't really make up for it, George. Only in your mind it makes up for it.
So, from what I understand, that script that she did, there was the snow planet she added, the Tauntauns, the ice creature. She added the whole thing with Lando, from what I understand.
I wish I had more time. I would have read up on that in that book, because it really does have everything, because he went over every goddamn draft of the script. But
that's called OCD.
But I was really pleased to see that this writer, he was having none of that Lucas crap. And, he doesn't have a grudge against Lucas, but because he gives Lucas plenty of credit. But he also mentioned something which that video doesn't point out, which is how much Lucas stole from Jack Kirby's, I think it's Darkseid.
New Gods.
New Gods, thank you. I mean, it's all right there. I mean, it's right there. It's this evil villain with a black suit, and this one's, and there's the force of something, or the energy of something. I don't know. Excuse me. Sorry.
Life.
Yeah, the anti-life equation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of sources for these movies, and I don't see Leigh Brackett stealing from all those places, because she has no history of it.
No, I would come from a different angle on that one. She and Kirby crossed paths, and her husband crossed paths with Kirby quite a bit. Edmund Hamilton wrote for DC Comics.
Right.
At the same time that Kirby was working.
So did Alfred Bester. Alfred Bester wrote Superman comics sometimes back in the 40s, I think it was. Sorry, go ahead.
And Hamilton wrote for Batman. He wrote for
Superman.
I think he wrote for The Flash too.
And Aqualad.
Aqualad, there you go.
Very important character.
Aqua Kid. Hey, Pop. But did Edmund Hamilton write for the Superman horse or the Superman dog? Come on.
Yeah, Crypto and
Comet. Yeah, come on. Let's get into the real heroes here. Not this other
Yeah.
not this human centric stuff. Come on, man. Anyway,
Okay. Geez, I thought you'd have more to rant about on this topic, but
it's. I mean, well, let's put it this way. It's just coming from an angle that I don't buy into. Is all. I mean, I could rant all night on things if you want, but did Leigh Brackett write Star Wars 1? No, I just don't see it, because you know why? She was also, as it points out, she's very clued into the Writers Guild because of the draft that she did for Man's Favorite Sport, and she didn't get credit for it because she wasn't one of the original writers. And also other writers did stuff too, but her things were more crucial than some of them. So I just don't see her writing that movie and not taking credit. I just don't see it.
And Man's Favorite Sport was 1964, so she had already learned her lesson by then.
Yeah, yep.
So that is a good argument.
Yeah, that's it. She got burned by that. I think they mentioned in the video. So she was very aware of that stuff, and frankly, she was also in contact with Harlan Ellison, and Harlan Ellison would have yelled it from the rooftops if she wrote it. If she wrote Star Wars, he really would.
Okay,
because
I buy that.
Yeah.
I thoroughly buy that.
So, yeah. Sorry, I don't have enough rant in me tonight. Maybe I don't have enough caffeine in me.
Okay, Neostar, we were talking about Edmund Hamilton, who is featured in Ridiculum. We have one of his stories.
Oh.
And Edmund Hamilton was very prolific, wrote a ton of pulp stories. As John said, Captain Future. But for comics, he did Action Comics, Adventure Comics, Superboy, Legion of Heroes, Batman, Green Lantern, Showcase.
I was incorrect about the Flash.
Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane. He wrote some of those.
Jimmy Olsen. Oh, I should check and see if he wrote, my favorite Jimmy Olsen issue.
And World's Finest. So, yeah, there you go.
What was your favorite Jimmy Olsen issue?
Oh, dear God.
I'm blanking on the number, but
want to go grab it?
I don't know if do I have it? I do have it.
Yeah, you have it. It's in your shelf of terrible comics.
Yes.
Ooh, you have one of those too, huh?
A space alien dropped a Lego someplace, and Jimmy decides to crawl into the backside of it. And when he pops out the other end, he's in a world where if you're not wearing a cape, you're a slave.
Wow. It sounds a little bit like Stalker or the book Roadside Picnic by the Street
And he becomes Clark Kent's slave.
Well, first he becomes Bruce Wayne's slave, then he becomes Clark Kent's slave, then he becomes the Jimmy Olsen of that world's slave, and that's so Freudian because Jimmy Olsen is like, yeah, sure, I'll help you get home, but clean my fucking house, slave.
See, this is really a lot like Roadside Picnic, because the whole point of it is when you use these alien artifacts, it gives you what your heart desires, not what you think you really desire, what you really desire. So Jimmy Olsen goes into this object and becomes a slave.
Yep. It's Jimmy Olsen number
117.
Oh, 117. Okay.
I never read DC, so that doesn't really.
No. Kat has gone out of her way to collect terrible Jimmy Olsen comics
because they're hilarious.
What's so hilarious about them?
Didn't you not hear what she just said about?
But is
transported to the planet of the Capes where he's a slave to himself?
Is that typical of the type of things? Okay.
Yes. Each adventure of Jimmy Olsen is just absolutely batshit insane.
Because what was another one that you got? Where he had a room full of all of his favorite souvenirs from Superman adventures, and then he gets robbed and.
Yeah, and bad guys are using them because they're all functional equipment from various heroes and villains. Or then there's the one where there's a horrible accident and Superman is put into a robot body and Jimmy's the only one who knows and has to teach him how to be normal because he doesn't have powers anymore.
It's just like, what the hell is this shit? And the
Um,
dialogue is like, you knew the writers were just like, okay, let's make him say this now.
oh, there was one that was really wacky. I'll be right back.
I see, because if you were asking me, to be a publisher for comics, I'd say, Jimmy Olsen, who the hell wants to read that? Get that the hell out of here. I can't believe it got up to 117 issues.
Although,
I mean, what does he do? What does he freaking do? He's a freaking loser reporter who gets, who screws up. He's like, I mean, I'm baffled. Jimmy Olsen. Oh my God.
Well, as we're waiting for Kat, you remember
Yes.
how I said that I was thinking about taking a Dukes of Hazzard script and rewriting it as a space opera?
What an
to see if
amazing
I could do it?
idea. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, I'm learning a lot reading these TV scripts.
Like what?
Well, I always thought, how the hell did these people come up with weekly shows? Especially back then when you couldn't have story arcs. They all had to be syndicated.
Right. Yep.
How did they do that? How could you just keep on cranking this shit out?
Yeah.
And I've come to the conclusion they were amusing themselves, because in this Dukes of Hazzard script, the sheer amount of homoeroticism that secretly slipped in is hilarious.
Right. Well, also they tell the same story. I mean, every week, it's like Gilligan's Island. It's the same story every week.
No. Hear me out. This writer was obviously entertaining himself.
Okay.
They pull the Dukes over and they have some guy in the back seat, and the sheriff's like, "Now you boys get over here." And the deputy, "Sheriff, you got to search him. He's got a bump in his pants."
Because you know what, they must have figured who's gonna tell, who's gonna know.
And then later there's a subplot where the villain throws a snake in the General Lee, and it's in the driver's seat. And, "Oh my God, Luke, there's a snake. There's a snake between your legs." Well, hold on, gently grab it. Gently grab it. It's like, holy crap, nobody caught this?
Just some good old boys.
Gently,
never meaning no harm.
Carefully between my legs. I got the snake.
It was
Now
Daisy.
Okay,
and Daisy was like the one girl. It's like, if you're making that type of a show, it's like you have just one hot girl, really? And these guys spending all their time together? Okay.
Well, sorry, audience. I really did think we would have a lot more to say about this, but maybe we need a hardcore Star Wars fanatic.
Well, why don't you ask me questions? I can get mad if you just ask the right questions. By the way, if you like Edmund Hamilton, my favorite story of his, did you ever read In the World's Dusk?
No.
It's basically about the very last man alive on Earth. And this is in a far future, Jack Vance type future. And he's like this master of science and all this stuff. And the whole world is like covered in dust, and he has his palace and these, it's mind-blowingly good. It deals with all these decaying futures type stuff that was like years ahead of Jack Vance. It's a really good story. Oh, come on, you could poke me if I'm like, a bear in the cage and you have a stick. Let's hear it. I'm ready to hear your defense of this theory, because
well, no, you're far more acquainted with her work as a scriptwriter, and you're far more acquainted with the film world. So I just figured I would get your opinion on it.
But that's the thing, is if I thought she was, I'd be totally behind that, but I just don't see it. Also, she wrote a book that is not really connected to her other stuff. It was called The Long Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best. In the first place, it's about like a future that's like an agrarian society, and you realize that, yeah, exactly. It's like it's long, but after a nuclear war, and this concept has been used many times since, but she was the first one to really nail it. And there's even a point where the characters go to a place called Bartertown.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually Barter's Town. with an S in it. But yeah, so but it's a terrific, it's a really good book. It does hold up really well, and it's not like her other stuff. I mean, she did mysteries. She did the other thing too. Excuse me, is she was oh, good. I'm glad there were hot girl guest stars and Dukes of Hazzard.
No,
Because
of
I
course
didn't
there
watch
were.
it. My brother watched it. I didn't watch it because I was like, it's the same fucking thing every week. Um, she oh shit, I lost my train of
Look,
thought
when
here.
you're 4 years old and you want to see cars crash, it's good.
Gosh dang it. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like TV back. I look at back at TV in those days, and people today they have. I mean, you look at all this stuff. I keep finding like such and such a TV series now in its seventh season. I'm like, I've never heard of this show before, and it's in its seventh season. People don't understand how one of the things contributing to the disunity in this country, like it, I'm not saying this is a good thing or bad thing. I'm just saying that I'm making an observation. Is all the I mean, there are all these cultural choices now. When you had 3 channels before, you had to deal with, well, this is what I sat down and watched last night after work. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Now you could have a room of 100 people and not one of them has anything in common with the other in terms of their television viewing. And that's a good thing. It's also a bad thing in some ways. But back then, I mean, the best science fiction in prime time at that era was the $6 Million Man. It's so watching this guy running with super speed, but he's 10 times slower than the normal people are. That's what you had for science fiction. And now there's like, I honestly, I can't even keep track how many Star Trek shows there are on TV or Star Wars. And they're just cramming out those Star Wars shows because I don't think they're getting the viewership they thought they were. Like the Boba Fett show, which was the show, or no, Mandalorian, but that was the big great show. And now it's like the people who would tell me how great it was are like, it's all right. They're like they've lost steam on it.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm opening an invite if somebody actually wants to jump on and rant for a few minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wish I talked to you earlier. I would have had time to slap something together, but I just
Well, the reason I brought you on too is you're the film guy. You've read this stuff. You've read her scripts. You were the one that introduced me to her work.
Oh, good.
Both film and books.
Oh,
and I feel like in the past you've talked my ear off about Leigh Brackett. And I thought the audience could benefit from it, but I think you're tired.
That might be it, but I'm open for anything because I'm not going to tell the listeners why, but I feel very indebted to you two tonight. So whatever you want to talk about, I will talk about.
You, Kat? You were a bit of you're an old school fan.
Yeah. But yeah, I wasn't introduced to Leigh Brackett until John introduced her to you. So,
and no, but your opinions after watching that documentary.
I honestly feel like I don't have enough information in order to form a stance, because I agree with you, John. We know that Lucas likes to steal from the best of them. It is without question that he was reading her books, that he was reading her husband's books, that he probably watched her movies, and that he steals from the best of them.
I think keep going.
For Star Wars, the first movie. On the other hand, if you look at where he was in his career at the time, now I don't know enough about her, but I could say that there is an argument that he's like, hey, I'll pay you X amount of money if you just shit out a basic script for me and use it as a ghostwriting credit, and her saying yes. Now, if she's not in the habit of saying yes to ghostwriting, okay, then that throws that argument out the window. But I see that there's the
She
possibility.
did do ghostwriting.
Yeah, so I see that there is the possibility of that being a scenario, and then Star Wars exploding and him going back to her saying, "I need you to help me write the second one." She's like, "I want my name on it, God damn it!" So,
Wolf, welcome to the show.
The power of the battleship is nothing compared to the power of the Force.
Okay.
you sound like a guild trader. Anyway, but so
Kat, do you mind if I ask you a question?
sure, certainly.
What you say that are you are you a big science fiction book fan, a fan of science fiction literature?
I am a decent fan of science fiction. I will admit that there are horrendous gaps in my reading knowledge.
Who would be your favorite writers of like the pre-50s science fiction? If you have any.
Wells.
I do say Wells, but I have opinions.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is what science fiction are you like best read in? Your favorite? What kind of, like, give me an era or a couple of writers. I'm just trying to fix on something here. Like, who are your favorites of older science fiction? We'll just say older, like pre 1980. How about that? Make it a little easier. Yeah.
Philip K. Dick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd say Dick, Heinlein, and yes, Asimov. So.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a lot in Star Wars from Asimov too.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm just trying to.
And I have read Herbert. Don't get me wrong. I've read all the way up to God Emperor. But I enjoyed those books. But I'm glad I read them. But I don't consider them my favorites. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure, because it sounds like you're like, when you mention Asimov and Heinlein, that kind of, you're not so much into the like space opera stuff as in book form. Is that true?
My problem with space opera is that I'm too well read in human history. It just strikes me as retelling human history, but in space.
Like the Foundation trilogy.
Oh, I hate the Foundation trilogy. No. But the best part of Foundation was the mule, and Asimov himself hated that character because he was forced to write it. And that part I thought was the most compelling thing Asimov ever wrote in his entire life was the mule.
And that was John Campbell that made that character.
Yeah. So I like things like, oh, you wanna talk pre-80s? Doctor Who.
Okay.
Doctor Who up until
there's a book
because I was not born into that.
Well, but that's that's the advantage, Wolf, of today. We have access to all of that stuff from the past before 1980.
It's gonna take a long time. My only taste of that was the Peter Cushing movie with the Daleks.
That wasn't very good.
That wasn't very good.
see, I enjoyed it.
Hey, now Ishi can tell you this, Wolf, that you are like my target audience for when I put my hopefully I was going to do it this week, but I might get it done by the end of this week. I'm putting up a channel that focuses on old books and movies, particularly science fiction, fantasy and horror, that have been forgotten. But I think today's audiences would like, because, for example, like, I'm sure I'm not going to surprise anybody saying this. You tell a person about a movie, they get excited, and then you tell them it's black and white and it was made before 1990, and you just see the interest drain from their face. There are some people just will not do it. I think there is a huge audience, particularly of younger people, who would be open to those things. And if you were at least willing to watch that Peter Cushing Dalek movie, there's so much stuff that you would be into from the 60s science fiction movies. Cad, what I was trying to get at with all that was, Asimov and Heinlein are, as much as their philosophies are different, they're of a certain type of science fiction, that dealt with, the future history, particularly. They were both into future history, so to speak. And that's Star Wars touches on that stuff. It's so antithetical to anything that those, like, those two guys were very different people, but they were into, certain things, certain concerns that are not of interest to Lucas. And I think that's the problem that his movies have inculcated in people. It's like, we don't care about that stuff, because those, like John Heinlein books, could make really thoughtful, good science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
I just, Philip K. Dick's a whole nother story, but I love Philip. I've read most of his novels, not all of them, but most of them. But anyway, yeah.
well, the thing with Lucas is that he wasn't really writing sci-fi. He was writing fantasy and space,
Right.
and though as much I totally enjoy the films, it is extremely black and white. There is no gray, so
Yep.
you know exactly where somebody is standing on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, with just by looking at them, you don't need to know anything else. I mean, even though Han fucking shot first, Han
Yep.
is still a good guy.
Right.
And when
He's
it
not a
comes
bad guy. He just has done bad things, but he is good in the core of him. You're just waiting for the good guy to find a chance where he can come out.
And really, I mean, if we're going to, be perfectly honest, the sci-fi that most recently just got me so freaking excited was finally going back and reading the Timothy Zahn expanded universe. And I loved that because it was still playing in Star Wars' universe, but it made Star Wars sci-fi.
Okay.
Have you read those books?
I have not read any Star Wars books, except when I was a kid. I read the novelization when it came out by Alan Dean Foster, which is George Lucas takes the credit, of course. And then the Splinter of the Mind's Eye,
which I have.
Did you read it?
I have not read it yet, no. But I inherited my dad's copy.
It's good, and it's low key, because he was basically said, look, if this movie doesn't pan out, I want to maybe do a cheap sequel. So a lot of it happens in the woods, for example. It's good. It's a good small story. That's what I liked about it. It isn't like big space battles. It's much more about the quest for the stone that gives you the force.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wolf? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I've been chatting enough. Well, it's Wolf's turn.
Yeah, I want to hear what Wolf has to say about this.
Which topic? The fact that Han was never my favorite character. It was always R2D2.
Hey,
he was cool.
It was always R2D2, and
because he was so cool.
As soon as he popped up in Phantom Menace, I was like, yes, it's R2D2.
In the original Star Wars, R2D2 was like, to everyone else, it's like, you guys don't know. You guys don't know what's going on. I know what's going on. I'm just doing my thing. And that's what was so great about him.
I still think the funniest damn thing I saw out of Star Wars was the outtakes, where you get to hear what Peter Mayhew is saying.
Oh, I haven't seen those.
Well, yeah, you don't expect Chewbacca to have a conversation with Han going, well, no, I smell something bad in there. I'm not going in.
I don't care what you smell. Get in there.
No.
I'm talking about the fact that originally he was a green monster.
Originally, Han was a green monster. Originally, Han was supposed to be a reptile. I mean, they have all these crazy ideas. I mean, Luke was going to be a girl for a long time.
Oh, that explains, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't have a problem with the characters in the sequel trilogy. I just think the whole 3 movies was a complete waste of time. Complete waste of time.
What characters?
There's no sequel trilogy.
Okay, like I
I would
said,
have
I'm
just
tired.
written Ray. I would just have written Ray as a Jedi Master out to train Finn.
That's how
That
it would have been
this
interesting to see somebody just jump in with the master, like as your main character.
yeah, we did kind of get that with Kenobi. I didn't watch that crap. Truth be told, honestly, the new stuff that they keep turning out in those Disney Plus shows, they seriously is. The more I'm looking at clips that people show, they look nothing like George Lucas's style. They don't try
Right,
to emulate his style.
right,
George Lucas throughout the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy had a style. Even though Empire was not his, it still was his own style. Somebody knew how to do his style.
Oh, he's a
Like
good visual director.
Mm-hmm.
like the Star Wipes are completely different. Like they say fuck the Star Wipes. They just do they do all kind. They do circles. They do triangles now. It's like Jesus. Can we go back to the old Star Wipes?
Well, the old wipes were from classic pulp,
I
so
know. The thing is,
well,
what kills me that he started doing that in episode 3. I was like Jesus, Lucas, go back to the old OGs, Star Wipes, man. That was like,
what
and then what kills me is that I seen Rise of Skywalker and I didn't pay for that. My mom paid for that. I went to see it with her because she didn't want to see Knives Out or the latest Donnie Yen movie because she didn't want to read through that. I was like, and one time I wish I would have went to that Donnie Yen movie because I don't mind reading subtitles on the screen. They're big enough for me to read.
yeah,
But
yep.
but I digress. They had the nerves to put a flashback in a Star Wars movie.
I don't even remember that. I mean, because
I I
I
sunk
saw it
in my
once.
seat so low when I saw that flash. I was like, flashbacks in a Star Wars movie. Star
It's
Wars never relied on
no,
flashbacks.
right.
There,
No, of
I was
course
like,
not.
JJ, you commit the cardinal sin. You never put a flashback in a Star Wars film. I don't care if
Right.
it's a Star Wars show.
The whole
Nobody
movie
puts a
is the whole movie is a flashback. It happened a long
yes.
time ago.
My mom asked me, "How do I feel about the movie?" I said, "Man, that fight, that sword fight career was terrible. The
hmm
the the fact that they put flashbacks in a Star Wars movie that was just bad. Like my mom was like, you didn't like it? Are you serious?"
it's
She
the thing
laughed,
is,
but she knows how critical I am of movies sometimes. Like I've grown to be very critical.
Of course
And
I didn't like it.
now the thing is, bro, I just gave her that look like you're serious.
Nope.
I just gave her the the J. Joe Jameson you're serious look.
mystery box, the mystery
What?
box, mystery
Oh,
box.
stop that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Why
turn
that
it
that
sideways and
trilogy
stick
was
it right up in your candy ass, JJ.
the mystery box. We never got to the end of the mystery box in this trilogy. So it's like, okay, what was this trilogy here for?
Let's
Why
go
was
over
Well,
this
what it
made?
is. A
That's the
fucking
mystery.
rabbit hole out. He
J.J. Abrams' wife's head is in the box.
Yeah.
What's in the box? What's in the
What's in the fucking
box?
what's in the fucking box? And so it's like Fincher said, 25 years from now, the people be at a cocktail party and they'll say, I saw this great movie last night at 2 a.m.
You know,
I can't remember
honestly,
the
I
name
think
of
I
it.
know what. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
I think I think I know what JJ has been wanting to write for so long. The ultimate Alice in Wonderland story. Because that mystery box is just nothing but a hole that endlessly falls like limbo.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It has to be better than freaking Burton's version, which was one of those horrible
Uh,
abortions ever put on film.
don't even watch. Don't even watch the sequel. The sequel put me to sleep.
Oh God, I didn't even know they made a sequel to that. Shows you how out of touch I am.
He
But
even made he even made the Nutcracker,
oh
and even that
God,
put me to sleep.
good God.
It's like Burton, what is wrong with your movies of late? They're putting me to sleep, man.
Well, he himself said it years ago around the time of Batman. He says, "I'm not interested in stories. I'm interested in cool looking things." He flat out said it. He says, "I don't." He says, "I don't know the basics of storytelling."
Why don't you stick to stop motion,
Really?
I mean,
fool?
he said it. I mean, and he says, I'm interested more in like the scene, the individual scene. And you look at his movies and it's like, well, that's like you get something like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is like the perfect example of that in a good way. It's just like, this is this weirdo, and now I'm going to put him into these situations and these places. And
Well,
it
Pee-wee and Phil
totally
Hartman wrote
works.
that.
Yeah. Oh no, but I'm just saying that's why Tim Burton should not. He should work with a producer who doesn't just nod and give him what he wants. But who the hell is going to willingly do that? He's not. It's like Stephen King. They're people who they don't realize that I'm in a position where I can do whatever the hell I want. So I don't give. I'm not going to listen. Anyone can tell me anything, but I'm not going to do it. And that's fine, and it makes money. So what are you bitching about? That's the
Maximum
attitude.
overdrive. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Steven
Yeah.
has Coke.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother show. But
Steven nowadays look like I'm ready to punch him in his face to fix his mouth. Because every time I see his mouth,
His-
it looks like a
it's
freaking
just
cartoon drawn
it's
across the back of.
disturbing.
I know. It looks like a
He looks
cartoon
like his
now.
own caricature. Yeah, his mouth looks like somebody drew it, and like his big ass teeth, and they're all over the place. It's like he's worth $500 million, and he can't get his teeth fixed.
Stepped off the set of Addams Family. He should have been Lurch. You Ray.
Oh my god! But anyway, just very quickly, you know, you see that like Foundation is on Amazon, and it just really, it just really jumps off from I mean, in the first place, Harry Seldon is it Harry Seldon? That's his name, right?
Nobody even noticed it was made.
Yeah. They basically they decided to tell a whole story in that universe that has like nothing to do with the books. It's like the whole Harry Seldon is he's the guy who pushes this whole thing, and in the first three Foundation books he's dead, he's long dead, right?
Yeah.
In this one he's a big part of it because this takes place early on, and guess what, he's murdered, he's stabbed and murdered, right? And then it comes out later he paid the guy to kill himself. He paid the guy, Harry Seldon paid someone to kill him because you need that type of a disturbance to start the revolution.
Okay, I've got a nice way to end this show, but I wanted to get everyone thinking. Isaac Asimov, communist extraordinaire, and he believed that he could use his science fiction, and even had his little club of futurists or futurians, that they would use science fiction to convince the world that what they needed was a technocratic state where a handful of intellectuals like him and his friends would rule as dictators over the rest of society in a communist utopia of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of what happens in the Foundation. But then there's a step further, because the Foundation has found this mathematical sequence that allows them to predict the future. And did you know all this weird occult bullshit with Hermeticism and Kabbalah that the SFWA was into believed that once you reached Hermetic enlightenment, you would find the mathematical alchemic equation to predict the future.
Oh my God, my eyes are spinning right now, and I don't tuned out. But that's
This,
the more
isn't
you
this
kept
fun?
talking.
There's a book that came out a year or two ago, which everyone listening.
Oh, I don't want to talk about his enemas.
Yeah,
oh yeah, and you like enemas.
Yeah.
Good for him. It's a book about John Campbell and the whole astounding era. It's this huge book, and I like blew through it in a night, and it talks about Asimov and all these other guys, and it really shows you how L. Ron Hubbard was perfectly at home with these guys.
Yeah.
And I have a theory, which I'm just not interested enough in researching to find out. I don't think L. Ron Hubbard believed any of that shit. I think he saw a way he could make money, and L. Ron Hubbard actually literally said these words like a year before his first book, Dianetics, came out, which was, if you could come up with your own religion, you could really bring in the bucks. He actually said those words, and a year later, Dianetics came out.
Well, he was a con artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he like wrote Pulp Fiction, and he was good at it. he wrote some really good Pulp Fiction. I mean, people, kind of lump it. He wrote Battlefield Earth. It's like, okay, he also wrote a book called Fear, which is one of the best horror stories written in the pulp era.
When you were learning to spell your name, I was trained to conquer planets.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry I wasn't angry enough for you tonight, guys, but
you're fine.
Well, we wanted Janelle to show up as well, but something came up. So
I
when will your channel go up?
I it might go up this weekend coming. I will let you know. But hey, just to let you know, just let me know a couple days ahead of time what your topic will be, because then I will be better prepared, because I have tons of stuff. I just don't have it written down in front of me.
All right.
I wanted to say more about the style of the recent Star Wars stuff, but we'll save it for another time.
We can do it. We can do it another time. Definitely.
Yeah.
We could do it next week. I'm sure there's no end to the bitching we can do about Star Wars.
Yeah, look forward to my my conclusion of Akira, the entire manga series. We're on volume 6 now, as of this month.
Awesome. I've checked some of those out.
Follow Wolf. I used to follow Wolf on Twitter until Twitter destroyed me forever. They blew me up.
Yeah, I've been missing you, man.
Yeah, but please follow him, because I can't. All right.
It's Dreadwolf 1990 on Twitter.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.